Hi there, it's Tom Pace again. Special event coming up in just a few days. It is the voter canvass for Caddo Parish. Now, we're over here at the Registrar of Voters office for Caddo Parish, and the Registrar, Ernie Robertson, about to give you a voting 2018 update for the upcoming elections. And Ernie, there is, well, let's put it this way, there's a way that you have to vet these people, is that right?
Well, it's true. It's in federal and state law. It's mandated that we have a canvass each year, and we're doing the annual canvass, which, of course, is kind of like the first step toward the election, because part of it's done electronically, and then part of it is mailed to people. And the first thing we do is we go through the voter list. Through the Secretary of State actually does this, and they take the voter list and match it against the Postal Service customer list, and they see what names don't match. If you live at, say, some address on Elm Street and your last name's Smith, but they have Jones as a registered voter at that address, then the Jones family will get a card to see if they're really there or not. And so that's the first step in the process. And Tom, it's one of the most important steps, especially in Caddo, where we've had a lot of folks move out.
Well, let me ask you this. If they get this in the mail, why do they need to check their address?
Well, number one is the address is the most important part for who you vote on in an election, because we have this year city council districts will be up for election. Of course, the mayor, you've got to actually be a registered voter inside the city limits of Shreveport. And then we've got school board elections coming up, and we do have some other our small towns are having elections. And so all of this pieces together to make sure that you are at your correct address so that we can make sure you're in the correct district in which you'll vote on, whether that's city council or school board or otherwise. And really, Tom, like I say, this is the first step and a very important step in the elections we're going to have this fall.
You're talking about for 2018 November?
For 2018, whenever we have the congressional elections, or that's one of the races that'll be up, of course, the mayor, Shreveport City Council, school board, and some other elections too, and some parish-wide props.
Okay, it's going to be November the 6th, 2018 will be the big election day. And Ernie, where do the addresses for changes come from?
Well, they actually come from the National Change of Address Center through the post office, and it's an outsourced vendor that the state works through. And this year, by the way, Tom, just kind of as a side note, the Secretary of State was involved in what's known as the ERIC program, where it's actually a match against other states. I think there are 23 states in the compact, and they actually check to see with those 23 states if we have a voter that may have moved there, using what information we can use that is not private information for the voter. And it turned out great. It was the best that we've ever had. It's kind of a work in progress as we go along. Everybody thinks we have that, when in fact it's taken several years to even get to where I feel comfortable that we're getting what we really are looking for. A lot of people responded to that, Tom. We had literally right at 300 people respond within the first 10 days of the mailing. So that's a good program, and people continue to respond, mail things back. And so the reason we're having this one is to tell people what to do if they get a card and the person doesn't live there, or if the person's deceased, or if, say, you have a student who has moved to another jurisdiction to go to college, let's say, and is registered in that jurisdiction there.
And again, what this is, it's your election 2018 update from the Caddo Registrar of Voters, Ernie Robertson. And that was a good point, Ernie. Is everybody going to receive a canvas card?
No, only the people that we have checked through the Secretary of State's office that do not have a matching situation. In other words, the name at your particular address is different than the name that's on the registered voter file, or if there's a problem with your address. And a lot of times people don't realize they got the number wrong. They go to turn in their address, they've just moved there, they can't remember if it's 102 or 201 or whatever it is, or they misspell the name of the street. You know, sometimes some of the curious names we have now, people actually misspell the name of the street, or they just get the wrong street entirely. So all of that will lead to the possibility that you might get a canvas card. When you do, look at it carefully. It may not just be your name that's the problem. It may be the street. It may be the number. Whatever it is, you need to fill in the correct information. It'll direct you on the card to fill in the information, and then get that card filled out correctly, mail it back to us. And if the person doesn't live there, Tom, that's the real person, people that we're looking for. Let's talk about that.
Okay. And you've already covered what I was going to ask. What do they do if they receive the card and they fill it out and they go ahead and get it back? But what if the person doesn't live there?
Well, that's the real key situation. If you get a card for somebody who doesn't live at that address, please write on there, does not live here, no longer here, whatever is appropriate, and mail it back to us. If the voter is deceased that we have mailed it to, please write on there deceased. Now, that'll prompt us to do a challenge for those voters in some cases, especially the deceased voters. So you may get another piece of mail from us, but that's the way the law specifies that we do it. If you happen to have a copy of the obit, or information relating to that person, if you want to call us and mail it to us or call us and give us that information, we will try to get from you as much as we can, because a lot of times when people die out of state, we don't get those death records. And then the second thing is, if they were living here but they became, say, ill to the point that their children took them to Texas or Arkansas or some other state to be closer to them, then a lot of times they leave their registration here and the person goes somewhere else, and we never hear about it except during the canvass.
Okay, now, Ernie, I see there's another item on here about homestead exemption. And what does that mean?
Well, there will be a question on there about homestead exemption. So for people that don't have a homestead exemption, basically it doesn't apply to you.
Do you put NA or something?
Well, actually, you don't have to do much of anything if you don't have a homestead exemption. But if you do have a homestead exemption, then you're supposed to be, according to Louisiana law, you are to register using your homestead exemption address. So it's important that you do report your homestead exemption address. And if you're not registered at that address and you do have a homestead exemption, then conceivably you could be challenged at some point. So it's really important for you to use that where you register to vote. And it comes into play a lot, Tom, and this is another situation with a community that's growing a little bit older, as Caddo is, that sometimes people have a homestead exemption address, but they go to a nursing home. And so they still have a homestead exemption on that house. In that particular case, you need to give us a call, and we'll work with you on that. Or if you're the son or daughter or child or relative of that person, we'll work with you on getting that straight for you the best way possible. And of course, that brings up the idea that people can vote from nursing homes. If you're 65 and above, or if you're disabled, you can vote from the nursing home. And if you want to get on that program, give us a call, and we'll step you through the form that we're going to need filled out, and we'll get it mailed to you.
Again, Ernie Robertson, Caddo Registrar of Voters, with Tom Pace. It is the election 2018 update with the canvas that's about to come out, mailing information out to residents to make sure that they are who they are, that they're living where they're supposed to live. And Ernie, you were talking about calling. What is the number to call?
Best number to call is 226-6891, 226-6891. Now, we're open from 8 a.m. in the morning to 4:30, and so you can give us a call during that time, and we'd be glad to help you in any way that we can. And really, once you get the card, if you have any questions, if you say, I don't even understand what it's saying, well, then give us a call. We're here to help you, and we want to make sure the information is correct for you. And we want to make sure that if somebody's on the card that is no longer in your household, then we need to know that. You need to write on there, does not live here, whatever the situation is, so that we can get that person processed through in the canvas, and then they eventually will be removed from that address. So it's important. It's the first step, Tom, but even more than that, this is the fail-safe. It's the only fail-safe we have, unless we get your name on another report. As you know, because we've done enough of these interviews, we get monthly reports on people who have been convicted of a felony. We also get a monthly death report. We get other reports from other governmental agencies telling us the situation on certain people, as well as registrars on the inside are swapping information. And as people move to another parish, then it's up to that registrar to basically capture that voter and move them to their jurisdiction, and then they get canceled here in Caddo. So that's part of the process. We're doing it every day, trying to make it as accurate as possible. It's tough. It's a lot of just basically grunt work.
All right, and Ernie, I think there's one question everybody wants to know. What if I don't send that card back?
Well, Tom, that's an interesting question. Here's what the situation would be. If you don't send the card back, let's say it comes to your household and the person doesn't live there, and you say, well, I'm not going to worry about it. They don't live here. Well, the problem is the person stays on the rolls, and they're not going to be voting from there. They don't live there. But all it does is it bloats the rolls. And so I want to encourage people to always respond to any mailing you get from the registrar's office. Let me go one more step with you. Let's say you registered to vote and you didn't fill out all the required information by law, and we send you one of our little information cards, and you say, I'm not interested in that, and throw it away, and you don't realize that'll prevent you from being registered to vote. This could eventually lead to where there's a problem when you go in to vote, and the real problem is you go to the polls and they pull out one of those long pink sheets, and they're saying to you, we have to have this filled out, and you have to verify your current address, and you're thinking, well, why do I have to do that? Well, that's all because you didn't fill out the form we sent, the easy one, to be honest with you, and mail it back to the registrar's office so we could get your address at the correct place, because we will mark you as inactive, and that's what prompts those address correction reports that you see at the polls.
Okay. Now, this comes back to the number one question. How big is this 2018 election year? It's called the midterms, but locally, as Ernie was talking about, mayor, city council, school board, and others. Ernie, how big is this election year?
Well, this is always, honestly, the most difficult election we normally run during a 4-year span, because it has complicated districts in it, because they're city council districts. So that's the first thing that's on there, and the mayor. And so everybody's always interested in the mayor's race. And then you're going to have possibly 7 city council districts that can be challenged. And then you got 12 school board districts too. All of this is a very complicated election. And Tom, it's one that takes a lot of planning on our part. And we're already planning toward what's going to happen in the fall and getting ready for early voting and doing things related to that. So this is a big election. The complication factor will be even greater in 2020, not because of the president, but because of some of the other elections that are on the ballot that have very complicated districts. And Caddo, of course, is the most complicated jurisdiction in the state. And so I'm saying to the folks out there, get ready, know who you're going to vote for, know if there are propositions on there, know how you're going to vote, because there's one thing that hadn't changed ever since I've been a voter, and that is you only get 3 minutes to vote.
Boy, talk about pressure. And you should be aware of each and every item that is on that voting list that as you do it. And so the rest of the story, Ernie, is if I've not registered, if I'm all of a sudden thinking, oh man, I need to vote this year, is there an easy way to do it, maybe online?
Oh, the best way. CaddoVoter.org. Click online voter registration. It routes through the Safe and Secure Secretary of State's website, and you can register on there using your driver's license. You'll need some of the information off of your driver's license or your Louisiana ID, and you can register to vote. It's quick, it's easy. It's also, Tom, on the backside, a lot easier for us to process. So if you can, go to that website, because it's easy, and basically if that information is accepted, 99 times out of 100, you're going to be a registered voter. Sometimes when you fill one out, they're kind of hard to read. So, but on this, it's real easy to get it done.
That's right, CaddoVoter.org, CaddoVoter.org. Ernie Robertson, Caddo Parish Registrar of Voters. Tom Pace with your election 2018 update. Just remember, CaddoVoter.org. God bless.